Welcome back. It is Erick Erickson. Delighted to be with you here this Monday. Well, I hope it's pretty where you are. It's blue skies where I am, and summer heat is upon us. Although, Philip, who works with me, is a big fisherman and was saying that the water is still not quite as warm as you would expect it to be, but it's starting to get hot outside, so I assume it's going to fire up. Now, I got to tell you, about, well, this is hard to explain. I'm talking about Omaha Steaks, and it's hard to explain because I haven't had a hamburger like this before. I ordered, and then they actually sent me, so I got more than I expected, and we're making our way through. The Omaha Steaks Get Out and Grill assortment for Father's Day. And they told me that they were sending me a new burger. Well, I don't know that it's a new burger per se, but it's one I've never had in this box. They're hamburgers made with New York strips. Now, the New York strip happens to be my favorite cut of steak. The reason the strip is my favorite cut of steak is because the ribeye, I think, it's not as tender as the filet, but it's got more flavor. The filet is very, very tender, but doesn't have a lot of flavor. And the strip is the perfect blend. It's still got a lot of the marbling from the ribeye, but the tenderness of the filet. It is the perfect cut of steak. And you get 4 of them in this Father's Day Get Out and Grill assortment. And you're going to get 4 burgers that are made from New York strips. You're going to get the Omaha steak burgers as well. And there's a difference between the two. There really is. I don't even know how to describe it really. So it's a slightly different chew and a beefier flavor in the New York strip burgers. I'm actually really impressed with it. I can't recommend it enough. They told me they were sending them, and I actually gave part of what they were sending to Philip because I already gotten some. But you get New York strip steaks, you get chicken breasts, you get Omaha steak burgers, you get gourmet jumbo franks. You get the steakhouse fries, the caramel apple tart, the signature seasoning, and then you're going to get these 4 New York strip burgers for free in this package, which is, I was intrigued, and they are good. Go to omahasteaks.com and put Georgia in the search bar. Georgia, the name of the state. Put it in the search bar. You'll see the Get Out and Grill assortment. It's perfect for Father's Day. My birthday's coming up. Father's Day's coming up. It's perfect time. We're going to the mountains. I already ordered some burgers to go to the mountains with us for Memorial Day, going up to Habersham County, and we're going to be grilling. We're going to have fun. We're actually legitimately taking Omaha Steaks with us. I put up a picture on Instagram the other day that the one that I ordered and the package I ordered, and it came with the New York strip burger. So you go get this, omahasteaks.com, put Georgia in the search bar. I got to say, a buddy of mine, let me just, as a tangent here, you could follow me on Instagram at EW Erickson, and we put up clips from the show. We put up audio, we put up video clips for the show, but I also just kind of live life at Instagram, the messy and all of it. Here's the thing. When I put something on Instagram, I don't like to put ad stuff. I don't like to put client pitches there or advertiser pitches. So if I put up Omaha Steaks on Instagram, it's because I ordered it myself. And a buddy of mine, being somewhat flippant, he texts me, or he puts a comment up there and says, where's the receipt? Because typically when people do that, who have blue check marks, they've gotten an ad commission or some such, and they're making money, and you're supposed to signify it's an ad. Well, I didn't, because I didn't. I actually bought it. But man, did his comment, I sent him a nasty gram, because then someone seized upon that, and I got in trouble with lawyers the other day for supposedly putting something online that wasn't mine. I really did buy it. I really am a customer. It was not an ad, but I do love my Omaha Steaks. Hi there, it is Erick Erickson here. Delighted to have you. Welcome. It is Monday. It's 35 after the hour. Let's get going. The phone number is 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. I got to read you guys this story, part of the story. Here's the headline from the New York Times over the weekend. Dozens arrested after conflict in Gaza leads to clashes in Times Square. This is the New York Times coverage of the clashes in Times Square over the Palestinian-Israeli situation. Listen to this. Several New York elected officials on Friday denounced clashes that took place between pro-Israeli and pro-Palestinian protesters in Midtown Manhattan, leading to more than 24 arrests and at least 2 people being hospitalized. The clashes on Thursday afternoon and evening began in Times Square and spread to the Diamond District, a small neighborhood south of Rockefeller Center that is home to many Jewish-owned businesses, as Israel and Hamas agreed to a ceasefire after days of fighting that killed more than 230 people in Gaza and 12 in Israel. By midday Friday, 27 people in New York City had been arrested on charges including disorderly conduct and unlawful assembly, the police said. Video taken from the scene and shared on social media showed fights breaking out among small groups, with people throwing punches and stealing Israeli flags from demonstrators as jeers were exchanged. It was unclear what incited several of the individual clashes or who started them, the police said. One video showed groups of young men, many of whom waved Palestinian flags or wore traditional Palestinian scarves, moving through Midtown, pushing and shouting obscenities at older men they called Zionists. At one point, a firework was thrown at close range at a group of pedestrians, including protesters, the police said, adding that it was unclear who threw it. Another video showed a man being beaten by several others while he lay in the street. A Brooklyn man, Wasim Awada, 23, was charged with several counts on Friday afternoon in connection with the beating, including assault as a hate crime, aggravated harassment as a hate crime, and criminal possession of a weapon. It was not immediately clear if Mr. Awada had obtained a lawyer. The police said they were still searching for 5 or 6 other people in connection with the assault. The victim, Joseph Borgen, 29, who is Jewish, was punched, kicked, pepper sprayed, and hit with crutches. He was taken to Bellevue Hospital. Mayor Bill de Blasio condemned the attack. Anti-Semitism has no place in our city, he said on Twitter. There's no excuse for violence against someone because of who they are. None. We will bring the perpetrators of this vicious act of hate to justice. The renewed fighting between Israel and Hamas set off a wave of protests and political tensions in New York and across the nation, with many rallies focused on Israel's treatment of Palestinian people and what some demonstrators said they felt was an insufficient response to the conflict from the United States. My point in reading you so much of this is because can you imagine this in the context of the January 6th incursions into the Capitol? Here's what this side says, here's what that side says. It's generalized protesting. It's actually not generalized protesting. What the New York Times is not getting at here is that these are attacks on Jewish people in New York, and it's also in Los Angeles and elsewhere. The fireworks being thrown, among other things, were fireworks being thrown into a Jewish resident's car at one point. All races and religions must feel safe in New York, and we must be a model of diversity for the world. Eric Adams, the Brooklyn borough president, leading Democratic candidate in the race for New York mayor, said on Tuesday. In another episode in New York on Thursday, a firework exploded at street level near 47th Street and 7th Avenue, leaving an older man collapsed on the sidewalk. A 55-year-old woman suffered minor burns to her back. Many details about the incident remain unclear on Friday. Police said they were unsure who had thrown the firework. The woman was injured in the hospital. She was Jewish. In Los Angeles, a group of Palestinians got out of vehicles, asked if there were any Jews present who were dining outside. No one knew what was going on, and several said yes. They were then set upon and beat up. At the University of Chicago, flyers have been found saying Jews are to blame for the world's problems. In New York, Palestinian activists and left-wing Antifa members, and yes, Antifa members, are set upon Jewish residents of New York, and the media is playing, well, there's anti-Palestinian violence as well, you know. This is somewhat ironic. After doing the both sides, well, it's violence against pro-Palestinians and violence against pro-Israelis. There's this. Data on anti-Palestinian incidents in recent weeks is less clear, but several mosques nationwide have reported damage or been vandalized, including the Taiba Islamic Center in Brooklyn, where the word "Death to Palestine" was spray painted near the front door last week. Very even-handed, you see. In Tucson, Arizona, Gabby Giffords, the former congresswoman, her synagogue was vandalized. One in Illinois was vandalized. Several in New York were vandalized. In California, several were vandalized. Jewish residents are being set upon by mobs in the street. On college campuses, there are pro-Palestinian demonstrations. And the media is very, it's both sides, it's both sides. Just think of this. You've got massive violence against people who support Israel. And the New York Times framing is, well, it's happening on both sides. Well, the Palestinian side is a little more nebulous, not a lot of documented attacks, but it's on both sides. Can you imagine the framing, comparing this to January 6th? January 6th, it's all Trump supporters bad, insurrection at the Capitol. There's no even-handedness. There's no trying to understand. There's condemnation. Not here, not in this. And you know, this puts the Democrats in a very difficult position because the Democrats are trying to do we condemn all violence against Jews and Palestinians. Very even-handed, very, very even-handed. Listen to Chuck Schumer.
Yes, so I was asked by a couple of people in the media to make some statements about the events of the last few days, so I'll make a brief statement on that. And I'd say to everybody, the operative word is peace. I'm really glad there's a ceasefire in the Middle East, and I have every confidence that the Biden administration will make all efforts to maintain it. Here in New York, peaceful protest is our hallmark, but it must stay peaceful. And in Washington, we just passed, and the president just signed, the anti-Asian hate crime bill just yesterday, and hate against any group, Asians, Jews, Palestinians, is wrong. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you very much, everybody. Hate is wrong. Hate is hate. Doesn't matter who's it, but it's only happening in one direction. Disproportionately, at least, it's happening in one direction. There's concurrent to this, there's a level of disinformation out there that the Palestinian supporters are engaged in. My daughter actually commented on this on social media. Overwhelmingly, between TikTok videos and Instagram stories and the like, people who support Palestine, particularly people in Hollywood and celebrities who are pro-Palestinian, have gone nuts with their disinformation and claims about Israel. And I sat down and talked to her about it and was explaining what is going on. And she was somewhat stunned by the level of disinformation out there that's influencing kids, influencing teens her age, from Hollywood celebrities and the like. That's all very pro-Palestinian. And clearly the media is engaged in this as well. I mean, go back to the story about the bombing of Hamas and their building. And of course, you've got Al Jazeera and the Associated Press working out of Hamas's building. And let me play you this clip by George Will.
Israel has always counted on a bedrock of bipartisan support in the United States. Is that endangered?
It's in danger to the extent that progressives set the tone. Progressives like victims. For a long time, Israel was David, not Goliath. Now, today, the Palestinians are victims, and they're getting the support of the sentimentalism about Israel. Mozart and the orange groves and all that stuff has gone away. And it's now a mighty military power with a booming information age economy. It's not as sympathetic as it was. So part of the generational divide that Ram is talking about is young progressives who feel none of this attachment to Israel. Right. And who look upon Israel as someone who's militarily competent, strong, vibrant society, and they kind of resent it next to the Palestinians.
Kind of resent it next to the Palestinians. They do. But also, there's a component of critical theory here. The Jews are viewed as colonizers. Colonizers are bad in critical theory, so they're viewed as oppressors. Therefore, the left takes the side of the oppressed, which they view as the Palestinians, pay no attention to the fact that they literally handed their government over to a terrorist organization. It's fascinating to watch the shakedown and to watch the divide, and then to watch the media try to cover it with some sort of level of even-handedness, both sides say sort of thing, when there's really an aggressor here, and that's a terrorist organization. Let me play you some of this interview with Dickerson this weekend. What is it? John Dickerson on Face the Nation on CBS with Bernie Sanders.
Let me ask you about how this has played out here at home. The Anti-Defamation League says there were 193 reports of anti-Semitic incidents this week, up from 131 the previous week. So that's during this period while the crisis began. In the past, you've said it should be possible to be a critic of Israeli policy but not be anti-Semitic. But it doesn't seem to be playing out that way with this uptick in random attacks.
Anti-Semitism is rising in America. It's rising all over the world. That is an outrage, and we've got to combat anti-Semitism. We have to combat the increase in hate crimes in this country against Asians, against African Americans, against Latinos. So we got a serious problem of a nation which is being increasingly divided, being led by right-wing extremists in that direction.
There are a number of liberals who use the word apartheid to describe Israel's treatment of the Palestinians. A number of them liberals in the House who use that language. The executive director of the American Jewish Congress, who handled Jewish outreach for your campaign, has said that word, Joel Rubin, has said that using that word has increased the level of vitriol that has contributed to this anti-Semitism. Do you think those who share your view should not use that kind of language?
Well, I think we should tone down the rhetoric. I think our goal is very simple. It is to understand that what's going on in Gaza today is unsustainable. When you have 70% of the young people unemployed, when people cannot leave the community, when hospitals and wastewater plants have been destroyed, that is unsustainable. And the job of the United States is to bring people together. And that is what we have got to try to do.
That is what we've got to try to do. Listen, the left is going to have a real hard time here because older members of the left tend to be sympathetic to Israel, many of them of Jewish descent. Bernie Sanders is one of them. Younger people on the left dislike Israel because Israel is so pro-United States. And they dislike Israel because they're taught colonizers are bad and Jews are colonizers. They're going to have a real hard time within the Democratic Party on this. Let me play the second clip from Dickerson and Sanders that gets to this point.
You mentioned an even-handed approach. When I read a portion of your editorial to Prime Minister Netanyahu, he thought it was preposterous, your claim that he had created the conditions and that he'd made peace impossible, because he said, how do you have negotiations with Hamas? They are dedicated to the destruction of Israel. President Biden again said that this week when he said, until the region says unequivocally they acknowledge the right of Israel to exist as an independent Jewish state, there will be no peace. How do you have an even-handed approach to terrorists who want to destroy Israel?
Well, what you have got to do is also understand that over the years, the Netanyahu government has become extremely right-wing, and that there are people in the Israeli government now who are overt racists. You have in West Jerusalem people being evicted from their homes, tremendous pressure on people within Israel, the Arab community, as well as Gaza. So you have a very difficult situation. You have Hamas, a terrorist group. You have a right-wing Israeli government, and the situation is getting worse. And all that I'm saying is that the United States of America has got to be leading the world in bringing people together, not simply supplying weapons to kill children in Gaza. This last series of attacks killed 64 children and destroyed a large part of the infrastructure of Gaza in a community that has already been one of the most uninhabitable territories in the world.
See, Sanders can't help himself. He can't help. He's got to go there. He doesn't like the Israeli right-wing government. But, you know, the left-wing governments in Israel have also been fighting Hamas. And Sanders was critical of them as well. You wouldn't know that from his statements now. Let me just put a little bow on this. The Democrats in this country keep trying to be united against the Republicans. They view the Republicans as an existential threat. They've got the American media constantly saying the Republicans are cult, they're racist, they're fascist, they're insurrectionist, you name it. And yet these divisions keep cropping up on the Democratic side. Their pretty little narratives don't actually hold up when you put the spotlight on them. And Bernie Sanders says he wants to be pro-Israel and pro-Palestinian, but he can't help but defend Hamas while calling them a terrorist group, noting, well, the Israelis, they killed all these children. Now, why? Why? Because the Palestinians forced kids. I played you the audio last week of the guy. When the IDF called and said, we're going to bomb your building, get the children out, he said, no, we're going to let them all die so the world sees you. Bernie Sanders is willing to play into that. The left has a real problem on its hands because they can't call out violence unless they perceive it to be from a Republican. They can't denounce terrorists unless they perceive the terrorist has Republican sympathies. They can't denounce fascism or communism unless they perceive there's a way to make it about Donald Trump. And while they're doing that, the rest of the world is paying attention, thinking, what the hell is wrong with these people? A lot is wrong with them. Liberalism, progressivism is itself a problem, and they're having to deal with it. It's rotting their brains.
Honest news and conservative views.